This is a jar full of turtles, and if you look in the back, you'll see a very small, extremely unusual two-headed turtle. I've never seen one of these before. Today, we're going to crack this jar open and get a closer look. This is Odd Animal Specimens. We're pulling out our first turtle specimen, and this guy looks wonderful. It's so tiny. Really nicely formed shell, extremely long tail, tiny sharp feet with little claws. The condition is really fantastic. The thing that intrigues me most about this jar though are two things inside. One, that two-headed turtle, obviously very unusual. But two, if you look very closely at the bottom, you could see that some of the eggs have cracked open. There are turtle embryos loose in the bottom of this jar. If we can find those turtle embryos, we could potentially get a very rare and unusual look at what a turtle looks like before it hatches from its egg, right off the bat. As usual, what kind of turtle is this? To figure this out, we turn to the label on the jar. Chelydra serpentina. This is the Latin name for common snapping turtle. You'll notice that there's some information on the label, a bunch of numbers. All of these numbers are the numbers associated with the specimens in the jar. Let's count the numbers to determine how many turtles theoretically should be in this jar. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So 12 turtles is our goal for this jar. Let's pull them out and see how many are actually inside. We've already pulled out one, so this is number 2. It's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. We'll spray to keep the specimens hydrated. You might notice that there's a few more things inside this jar. Now we're moving into the extra material, the material that maybe shouldn't be here in the first place. This is where things get a little more interesting. This is the head of a full-grown common snapping turtle. Quite obviously, this turtle was much larger than the rest. Everything here is very young, a hatchling that theoretically might have just came out of a shell. This might have been the parent, perhaps the mother whose shells are in the bottom of this jar. Hopefully the labels at the bottom can give us a little bit more information. Eggs laid June 30th, 1940. 2 smaller, August 14th. 2 larger, September 2nd. Wait a sec. Wait a sec. This label says there should be 4 eggs in here. There's definitely only 2. I don't know what's going on. What I do know is we've saved the 2 most interesting parts of this jar until the very end. The two-headed turtle and the turtle embryos. Oh, oh man. Here we have our very tiny two-headed turtle hatchling. Two-headed turtle that just hatched from the egg. This guy is incredible. One of my favorite parts about it are look at the mouths. The mouths were preserved open. It looks like a two-headed screaming turtle. Two-headedness is referred to as polycephaly. It's surprisingly common in reptiles and amphibians. Here's some video of a two-headed snake that I was filming earlier this week. The question is, what is it caused by? Well, as it's developing, sometimes an egg will split in half in 2 and form twins. But sometimes it doesn't entirely split in half. When the egg starts splitting but doesn't completely split and develops into a full-grown hatchling, that's when you get a two-headed animal, like this two-headed turtle or a two-headed snake. Absolutely outstanding. Here's the thing that's insane, though, that we need to take a closer look at. These tiny, tiny, tiny turtle embryos in the very bottom of this jar. We're catching them at an interesting stage of development. You can notice that their heads are very large and their shells and bodies are a little bit smaller. I think what's most interesting about these embryos is looking at their tiny turtle shells. A common question that I necessarily didn't understand before seeing these was, when do turtles develop their shell? Looking at these embryos, we can see that they develop their shells inside the egg and they hatch fully shelled. Absolutely insane.
This is a sea lamprey. Sea lampreys are parasitic eel-like blood-sucking fish. Here's how they feed. First, look at this lamprey's mouth. Notice how it's an open circle? This acts like a large suction cup that allows the lamprey to suction onto the skin of an unsuspecting fish. Inside the mouth, we can see a ring of sharp teeth. Once the lamprey suctions onto its host, it sinks these teeth into their skin to fasten itself in place. Now take a close look at the center of the mouth. Do you see that thing in the middle? It's the lamprey's tongue. Notice how it's covered in a bunch of hard, bony plates. These have a bunch of points on them. They're scrapers. Once the lamprey fastens onto its victim, it extends this tongue and begins to scrape, boring into the flesh of its prey and feeding on their blood.
This is a jar full of hammerhead sharks and something strange in the back. I'm not really sure what it is. Today we're going to crack it open and see what's inside. This is Odd Animal Specimens. All right, let's open it up. Oh man. Oh, look at this. This is absolutely terrific. All right, let's see what we got here. This is an extremely tiny hammerhead shark. Condition, absolutely wonderful. Look closely. The head looks great. Awesome dorsal fin, looks really good. Pectoral fins are great. Look at this little mouth. Look at that little mouth. Right here we have the pelvic fins too. Those look fantastic. And the tail looks good. Usually when I open a specimen out of a jar, I never really know what exactly it's gonna look like. This one looks really nice. It's totally complete. It almost looks like a toy shark. Sometimes you'll find that the specimens might have like a slit down the middle, or they were partially dissected by a scientist who is doing some sort of research, you know? But this looks great. A couple questions that come to mind right away. First off, what kind of hammerhead shark is this? There are a couple different sorts of hammerheads. We'll have to figure that out. Also, look right here at the middle. This is kind of interesting right here. It's almost kind of like a shark belly button. As weird as it sounds, it kind of looks fresh. It's a fresh shark belly button, which could mean a couple things. Remember this for later. Also, I mentioned earlier, there's something strange in this jar, some kind of like feathery thing at the bottom. I have no idea what that is right now. These are the questions that we hopefully can answer. What might give us some information is if we pull out this tag that's right at the bottom. There's an information label right here that might be able to answer some of our questions. Very nice. Here we have our tag. Let's get a closer look at it. Okay, at the top it says Collection of Fishes from the University of Michigan Museum of Zoology. This specimen is specifically from the University of Michigan Museum of Zoology. Here's what's important to us though. Species Sphyrna tiburo. That's a bonnethead shark, which is very important. Bonnethead sharks full grown are 2 to 4 feet. This guy is not 2 to 4 feet. So we know that it's a pup. It's a baby bonnethead. If you look at the head right here, you'll notice it doesn't really look like a hammerhead. It kind of looks more like a shovel. Well, bonnetheads also go by the name shovelheads, just another common name. Locality, this is from Bahama Islands in Bimini Lerner Marine Lab dock. It was collected off a dock, wherever Bimini is, I'm not sure, by the collector Sogandares in July 10th of 1957. This specimen was collected in 1957. Super old, even more impressive that they're in such good shape. But the most important thing that we got from this label is that these are bonnethead sharks. Very good information. Also, I think I know what this thing is now. Maybe. I'm not positive. We'll have to pull out some other stuff in order to tell. Let's take out another shark. The head looks great, pectoral fins, tail, everything looks really good. It also has kind of that fresh belly button right there. So the mystery continues. Here's something cool that we could look at now that we have a couple specimens out. Here's how you can tell whether a shark is a boy or a girl. And this works not only for bonnetheads, but for many different sharks. The thing you have to look at is a specific part of the shark. These fins right here called the pelvic fins. Take a good close look at these pelvic fins. You notice that they're just kind of like 2 flaps right there, nothing else, pretty simple, pretty plain. These are the pelvic fins of a female shark. So congratulations, this is a female shark pup. Hooray, we have a baby girl. Let's take a look at this one. These ones, okay, looking at it. Okay, take a close look at this. They don't look very different from the other ones. So I would say we have 2 female shark pups right here. We'll take a look at some of the ones later to see if we have any males. But remember what this one looks like, so we have something to compare to later. I'm gonna place these shark specimens over here and give it a nice little spray. We gotta keep these specimens wet with water so they don't dry out. Back to the jar. Okay, I can't get over this, like these chunks that are in here. I'm not sure what these are. I have a hunch, but there's another tag in here that I think can give us a little bit more information. Let's pull out that tag and see what we can find. Let's see what this one says. Okay, Bimini, July 10th, 1957. Lerner Marine Lab Doc. 7-pound female, preserved. Segundar. Segundaris. I don't know what this word is. It's cursive is hard to read. New piece of information. Very interesting. This says 7-pound female. None of these specimens here are 7 pounds. This might solve our mystery. Here's what I think we're looking at right here. These are a bunch of shark pups. It's a jar full of shark babies that I think were removed or taken from a preserved female shark that was collected for scientific research. This might give us some sort of indication what all this feathery stuff is in here, but we'll have to really pull it out to make sure. I think they could be shark embryos. We'll have to pull out some more in order to know for sure. This next part's gonna be pretty tricky because let me show you something real quick. Okay, when I pull out this shark, you might notice something really strange. You gotta look really close in order to see this. So we have to be pretty careful. Oof. Okay, can you see that this shark is still attached to something? It's attached to that feathery part, that feathery thing in the jar that we're still trying to identify. I'm pretty sure that this is the umbilical cord. It's attached to that kind of belly button area of the shark, you know? All right, this is potentially gonna get really messy because a lot of the stuff that I'm gonna pull out next is all interconnected together. So I'm just gonna do the best I can. Oh, geez. Oh, see, it's like all of the sharks are just tangled up right now. Oh boy. Okay. We're looking at one tangled mess right here. We gotta unravel all of this to see what we're looking at. What a pull! This is absolutely outrageous. Spray everything to make sure it's wet. Okay, let's go. Let's see what we're looking at right here. Okay, this is crazy. I'm like shaking. I'm so excited. Oh my goodness. I believe our suspicions were correct. It turns out the feathery things inside the jar, I think, were umbilical cords. Here's a much better view of a shark attached to the umbilical cord still. That's a little hammerhead pup with the cord still attached to its belly button area. That's absolutely outrageous. That's so neat. Right here we have a collection of 3 small sharks still attached to something. I think this is part of the reproductive tract of that 7-pound female mentioned on this little tag right here. So these are all shark embryos, sharks that have not been born yet. Do you remember when I explained how to tell the difference between a male and a female shark? Let's see if we can figure these ones out. We're taking a close look at the pelvic fins of this one. I think if you give it a look, tell me what you think, but to me these look relatively similar to the other ones. So I think we have our third baby girl, our third baby female hammerhead shark. Moving on to this next one here. I think this looks relatively similar to the other ones too. So I'm pretty sure that this is a 4th female, 4 females. Now we finally have something a little bit different. Okay, look closely at these pelvic fins. Do you see anything strange or unusual about these compared to the other ones? They have those kind of little tags on them, 2 little tags that kind of jut out in this direction like that. Those are called claspers. That's a key identifying feature of male sharks. So congratulations, now we have a multi-gender litter of hammerhead shark pups. 4 girls and a boy. If it has those 2 claspers on its pelvic fins, you know that it's a male. 5 shark pups, still more in the jar. I'm curious to see if we'll have more males or more females inside this jar. So let's pull them out and see what we can find. What a jar. Spray to keep things wet. Oof. This is truly gross. I'm not gonna lie. This is kind of disgusting. Here we have another small group of 2 more sharks to add to our litter. Let's see which ones these are. Another great look at that umbilical cord right here. Flipping it over, looking at the pelvic fins. Ooh. Boy or girl, what do you think? Pretty sure this one's a girl. Only 1 boy so far. Looking at this one. Oh, this one has, so this has a metal tag tied to its mouth. That's just kind of like an identifying feature that scientists will use in the field to identify the specimens that they collect. Looking at this, oh, see? Can you see? Look, those are those claspers. right there. We have a male to add to the bunch. So far, 2 males, 5 females. Last shark in the jar. Let's see which one it is. Pulling it out, looking at the pelvic fins, pretty sure that's a female too. Only 2 males and 5 females. But there's one thing inside this jar which will put a nice little bow on everything and answer our questions once and for all, exactly what we're looking at right here. One final information tag. Let's fish it out and see what's on it. All right, let's see what we got. Spherna tiburo. The female from which these embryos came is in tank. This confirms everything we were thinking about. All of these, turns out, are bonnet head shark embryos. Scientists collected a 7-pound adult female, and while processing that specimen, they removed these pups from her reproductive tract. Absolutely outrageous. That's the jar. What did you think? What animals would you like to see next? I have every animal that exists on planet Earth, so let me know. See you next time.